Preacher Season 2, Episode 11, Backdoors. Now, this was pretty much the episode I've been waiting for. You know, Jesse just being dumb, being an idiot. He put the freaking truck in the water. It was like, he gives like a small explanation officially in this episode, because I always wonder, was like, why wouldn't he just send him to hell? Like, I always thought it was just like, he wanted him to suffer. I thought that's why he put him, put the Santa Killers in the back of the truck and into the swamp. And then it actually ends up being that he didn't want to send someone else to hell because he's still dealing with, what he did to Eugene. So it was still dumb. Like, it just, no, regardless of what the reasoning was, it was just still insanely idiotic. And so, of course, it starts off where the truck is being pulled out. I instantly thought it was going to be someone else. I thought it was actually going to be the company that did it. And the first thing I thought was, idiot. And then, of course, they actually show Tulip and Jesse, and I was like, oh, I didn't expect this to be how that played out. So he has someone, they pull the truck out, and it's like, look, he's in there, no problem. I'll show you, like, he's in the truck, he can't possibly get out. And he wipes the window, he looks in, it's like, opens it up, water pours out, there's nobody in the truck. The Saint of Killers is just, just missing. He's just somewhere random, he's just gone. So they're kind of freaking out. Tulip is mad, of course, like once things kind of, everything is kind of put out there and they head back to the apartment. Naturally, Cassidy is mad as well, so it's like, great, now we have the Saint of Killers out there again. And Jesse's like, if he was going to come for us, he would have come for us. I would assume, at the time at least, because they kind of reveal it at the end that the reason he wasn't out there is because Aristar kind of had his plan, which is like, we'll just keep the Santa Killers off as like plan B or C, and we'll just worry about that later, unless it comes down to it, which would be very unfortunate if they had to kind of unleash the Saint of Killers all over again, because he wanted Jesse, alive. So in the beginning, it's like, all right, well, something's going on with the Saint of Killers. Maybe there's some other plan that's happened. Maybe, there's just something else going on. And they talk about leaving, and he mentions some random place, and everyone's super happy, like, sweet, let's get the heck out of here. But, of course, he still is on his mission to find God, which he could still be wrong about this because there's no official answer, but he believes that the answer, especially combined with what he saw and what happened when he met Jesus' like 35th lineage, 35th great-grandson or whatever they kept saying, he believes that God was actually the dog person that they met as soon as they got to New Orleans. He could still be super, super wrong, but he's fairly confident because of the pictures and what he was thinking, which I mentioned before, that person looks super weird, so I'm pretty sure he is right, because I was like, they had like some weird image when they showed the person, it was like the way their eyes looked or something is what caught my attention. I was like, that could be nothing, but thought it might be important. I said that like as soon as they showed him, so turns out that was God the whole way through, and that's why they had like that weird, shot on the character. So doesn't know where God is exactly, but he knew that God was there. So he's kind of freaking out. He goes to the grill. Turns out Hairstar actually has all of his prayers, which I thought was very interesting. It was like, I have all these recordings and stuff, which they don't really explain. He just said it took him a long time to track it all down. I was like, how does that work exactly? So, or maybe they did explain it and I just missed a section or something, but he plays through all these prayers through Jesse's life, where he's talking about, sorry I had thoughts, sorry I touched myself, sorry I punched this dude. He said it like twice where it was like, sorry I hurt this person, although they kind of had it coming. And it kind of combines with this really, really crazy moment that's, at the beginning of the episode, where he's being put inside this casket that's like sealed, like airtight, and they're pumping air in and out of it and just tossing him into the water. And apparently it's his grandmother, because we find out in this episode his real name is like Longier, or I believe that's what it was. And it, like, Jesse Custer, I guess is probably what his dad changed it to escape, the dark past that his family had. So once all that went down and he was back in New Orleans, his grandmother was like super insanely dark about it and forced him to use his original name and had him like thank God that his dad was dead and he's home now. So it was super crazy, and I'm like, I don't know where this is leading, but it explains why he knew about like the soul stuff, because he learned during that time like how dark the history was with his family and stuff like that. So that was a crazy little moment that I can't wait to get a bit more explanation on. We don't actually see his grandmother, so they might be saving that towards the end of the season, considering everything they're dealing with right now. But that was just a crazy little moment where I was like, I don't know what to really think about this, but I know his grandmother was absolutely insane to do that to him just because he didn't want to use like their original family name. So whatever was happening there was absolutely nuts, and he gets, as usual, pretty much been like pretty much the course of his storyline since they made it to New Orleans has pretty much been got this lead and then it fails. So he's same thing. He's going through, thinks he got something, it fails. He goes to Aristar to try to figure some stuff out. Aristar never realized what was happening, and then Jesse was basically just mad because he was listening to all these prayers and stuff. Has him stick all the tape up his butt, and that's a fairly definitive line. When someone tells you, shove this just straight up you, all this tape, just put it up your butt. Pretty definitive line that that person is not going to be on your side. So of course, that's where we have the end of the episode where he's like, all right, unfortunately, it's come down to you. We couldn't break up Tulip and Jesse. We got to release the Saint of Killers. So we find out that they put in that truck from the beginning of the episode, and they had the Saint of Killers locked up for, however long he's been locked up. And the dude's just like, I'm glad we could come to this conclusion. Now do what you do. And it was an amazing final scene where the door just unlocks, and he just bolts out of this, like, completely empty warehouse, and he's just sprinting, like, towards the camera. So it was a really funny way to end it, but they gotta unleash the Saint of Killers on Jesse and the crew, and I don't know how that's gonna play out. I have a theory that it's gonna end with them killing off Cassidy's son, because his son's been getting super dark, and Cassidy, I think, has finally realized it in this episode. Like, he asked him, like, where were you when he killed whoever and his mouth was all bloody, and he was just like, forget it, never mind. But he realized when his son was talking about, like, you like Tulip, so why don't you take her? That's what we do. He realized some stuff was off, and he was like, I don't think I should leave him with this dog, because he's probably going to eat this dog. And so he realizes some things are a little dark there, and I think that's how they're going to kind of end up, cutting that character out of the show, is that the Saint of Killers is going to come around. Maybe his son will be a bit arrogant and assume he's stronger than he really is, and try to take on the Saint of Killers, and that's going to, get him, like, decapitated or something crazy, and that's how they end up killing off his son. But that's kind of just, like, my little theory for how things will play off, mostly with his character, because I'm like, alright, I was wrong about him even turning into a vampire, and now it's like, I know at least a little bit about the comics. I don't recognize his character from, like, any of the stuff I've seen from the comics. Granted, I've never read it, so there could be a million things that I haven't seen, and there are. So he could still be in there, but that's just, like, my little theory is, like, that's probably how they're going to get rid of him, because he's really a wild card at this point. It's not as crazy as it could be yet, but he's doing some really dark stuff that they don't understand just yet, because it's like, it's just my son, he's a vampire now, and that's really it. So I think that might be how they end up getting rid of his character. But great storyline for the episode for sure. Of course, that is just half the episode, because we have, or I guess it's like 1/3, because Tulip still had her storyline where now that she knows the truth, she's super pissed, and it's her trying to get rid of every single thing that she can of the Saint of Killers. He's out there at random. They don't know where he is, but they know he's still out there. She tries to get rid of the guns. She tries to get rid of the sword. They go to, this guy who, like, melts everything down. The guns are so insanely magical, they don't even get hot. Apparently, they just stay, they just stay cool. So they can't get rid of the guns. They try to meld them off, which I assume is just gonna. She probably didn't put their actual address, so I don't know how that's gonna play. They can't do, like, an actual return to sender sort of deal. But something's gonna happen there. Like, I just have to assume he's gonna get his weapons back. But I don't know. Things are about to get really freaking crazy. I have to imagine the Saint of Killers is coming back, which I'm super excited for. I am very curious how that's gonna play out, though, with him not having his sword and not having the guns. Exactly what they're gonna do with that. Plus, he should still have a soul, but the whole point of the truck was, that's like the whole business was taking souls out of this body and then putting them into here. I'm sure there's something in that actual truck where they're like, hey, no problem. We'll just take this little bit of soul out of you. You do what you need to do. Put a little soul back in you. And then you're out of here. You can go to heaven because now you have a soul. So that might be the deal that they made. And it seems fairly easy to me. I mean, if they had the ability to get a secondary truck, they probably have, the equipment in there to just take the soul out of them. So, like I said, got some theories on that. But she was doing everything she could, and the nightmares are just going to come back for her, I have to imagine. But it was cool watching her still not understand exactly what was happening and realizing that this new friend that she had was working against her to try to break her up, from Jesse. She's doing everything she can to kind of be Tulip's best friend and be like, hey, Jesse did this horrible thing to you, and I can't believe he did that, and stuff like that. And things are just, worse and worse. But Saint of Killers is coming in, so I don't think any of that crap matters anymore. They both might get killed, like the woman who's pretending to be your friend. The other guy, both of them are they could easily just end up getting killed. I highly doubt it, because they made the deal with him. But he just kills everyone. Like, I don't know. Depending on whether or not they made the deal to say, hey, we will put the soul, like, a soul back into you, he'd probably just go nuts and kill everyone anyway. So we'll see how it plays out. But really enjoyed both those storylines. And then we finally go back to Eugene in Hell. And by the end, he's making some huge strides. We go through, we get to see exactly what Hitler's worst memory was, which I was waiting for that because they cut it off and I was like, I know we're going to see this at some point. It was interesting to watch. I was like, okay, this is not what I expected. I thought it was going to be like it was kind of what I thought, but not nearly to the extent that I was thinking. I was like, okay, something's going to happen here. People are going to come in, things are going to get chaotic, and that's what's going to like turn him into, Hitler. But it was just that he was like weak, and that was it. He goes to this dude with his drawings, which was a funny scene because they had the dudes like, oh, your lines are strong or whatever, and they had it, the dialogue was low, but as he's like complimenting him, he turns to the other people, he's like, I like to be encouraging, and it was like super low when I heard him say it. I was like, wow, that's kind of effed up. And then he says, you're like, oh, it's not that good, and he kind of just ignores him when Hitler's like, I can work better and come to you in a couple of months, and he just ignores him, so he goes off to the table. And then these guys come in who have guns and everything, the communists, and the gun slides to the ground. He picks up. It was just sad. It was so sad. I was like, this is Hitler. I should be happy that he sucks. It's fake Hitler, so it's like it's not really. It doesn't matter. But I was just like, wow, that is just so freaking sad. He picked up the gun, went to the dude, and he turned around. Everyone's looking at it. It was like, oh, he's got a gun. He's gonna like stop these guys, or like either shoot them or just tell them to get out. And the dude looks at him, and he just freaks out, and he's like, I think you dropped this. And he gives him the gun back, and it's like, wow, that is just so freaking weak. And so his girlfriend tells him, was like, I wasn't with my grandmother or whatever, which I knew was going to be a lie. Like, as soon as she said, like, oh, I was here, I was like, that's going to end up being a lie. And she was honest. It was like, all right, that was the weakest thing I've ever seen. So it's like, this is what really happened. I was with this dude, and we had a picnic all day. So she just leaves him, and I love the way they did. Basically, his beeline for hating all Jewish people was the fact that this Jewish guy that bumped into him in the beginning of like the nightmare memory got whatever the thing was. I can't even remember what the dessert was, but he got it first. And the guy was like, oh, we're out. And he was like, I was here first. And it was like, sorry, would you like a strudel? And then it was like, that's the end of the memory. It was like, I don't like strudel. And it's like, that's it. And it ends up being the reason, he hates that memory is because after that day is when he became the Hitler that history knows. And it's like, okay, so maybe he will actually be good, but it's still Hitler. Like the dude said in the beginning, it was like, you don't trust Hitler no matter what. Like, everyone knows you don't trust Hitler. I still don't, because he's Hitler. So we'll see what happens there, but ultimately they make this big leap. They're going to like the next big step for Eugene, and I guess now Hitler's storyline as well. So I'm definitely curious to see where it's going. But this was definitely a good one. Definitely a good episode overall. I am really looking forward to what the heck is going to happen with Eugene's storyline. I don't know. I would imagine that he gets out at least by the end of the the end of the season. And I would love for it to be, I don't know, 4 or 5 episodes before this season actually ends. Because I would love to see him like exploring the world and really not, realizing the entire city's gone. And the only person he basically has is Jesse Custer. And he's like, well, I got to track him down, and that's pretty much it. So I'm looking forward to him officially escaping. I hope that it does happen, sooner rather than later, long before the season actually ends. And I would imagine it'll be before the season finale, but we still might not get that much out of his storyline until, season 3 with him officially being back. But really fun episode. Can't wait for the Saint of Killers to come back and just absolutely wreak havoc. But of course, I would love to know what you guys thought about this episode, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, your least favorite parts about it. And of course, with the Saint of Killers now returning, I would love to know where you guys think things are headed. The Grail is officially against Jesse. Star said his plan was to replace the Messiah and, put Jesse in his place because he has actual power. So that probably won't work now with, him sending the Saint of Killers after them, even if it's like, you know, even if they made a specific deal or whatever, probably isn't going to be too good to have Jesse as an enemy. So, you know, we'll see how that plays out and all. But I would love to know your theories for what's about to happen next, what's going to happen with the Saint Killers, who he's going to end up killing. That's important. Like I said, I really only think it's going to end up being Cassidy's son, but I could be wrong. You never really know how things are going to take place in this show. It's absolutely insane. But we'd love to know your theories and, of course, what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.